It looks good. Looks good. Looks fresh.
My barber has lovingly named it the failed art student for me. So next time I go,
nice.
I just get to say, I just have to say, failed art student, please, and I'll be set.
No, I think that's a fair evaluation of that haircut for sure. Hey guys, welcome back onto the Hub Grass. I'm Matt, as always. Here I have my illustrious co-host as well as future Pixar villain Mason Betterly. How are you today, Mason?
I'm doing great. I didn't know where you were going with the Pixar thing because we've been joking about this for a friggin' week.
You know I had to. So this week, as you can tell, it's going to be a fun episode. We have a lot of fun discussions to be had, a lot of great banter to be had as well. So the main topic of our show today is kind of a debate that Mason and I have had for quite some time now, is the Joe Rohde versus Tony Baxter discussion.
We've really been like going back and forth with this since we met, haven't we?
Basically, I think when we first sat down and spoke about like our love for Disney and things like that, I made a comment to the degree of like how Joe is like the modern day like Uncle Walt, and you had not the happiest response to that categorization of him. So I knew that we would have a little bit of riff on our opinions of Joe Rohde, at least. I do want to say out of the bat, I love Tony. So anything I say today is keep in mind Tony is like in my top 3 Imagineers anyway. So
totally.
It's just like I have Joe. I have Joe above Tony. Just for a few reasons.
Well, and I think we have to remember today when we are debating this, I'm gonna do my darndest to not be like to come down on Joe with this. I'm really gonna try my best, and our listeners are gonna learn why I have that trouble probably later on. Yes. I guess we'll address it because I didn't want to tell you the full story until we were on air because it's good content.
It's good.
But yeah, I'm gonna try and focus on highlighting what makes Tony so great, not why I think Joe Rohde's a pretentious ass. I'll try and avoid that.
And that's my approach as well. I'm just basically going to highlight what I think is great about Joe. But before we get into that discussion, I do want to talk to you about some things that happened this weekend in Disney news. One of them being the command strip gate of the Cinderella Castle. I don't know if you saw this. There was some pieces that fell off of Cinderella Castle with the new the bunting and the decorations for the 50th.
Yeah. And
there was kind of a dome piece on one of the buntings, and it appears that it was only secured with a command strip. So I know that they brought back the Disney College program, but I didn't realize they were putting them in charge of decorating the castle prior to them bringing them back.
That's a low blow.
I had to do it. For me, I think it was one of those instances where they probably used a command strip to kind of get everything in place and make sure everything looked good. But I think they just forgot to secure it because I really doubt that there all those decorations are on there with just command strips.
I think, I saw Walt Disney World News Today post on it, and of course, they're always on top of those kind of things. And the shame of it is that right now, nowadays, everything is so under the microscope with everything they do. It's funny, kind of like it's funny that it happened. It's a shame that it happened. I'm sure it got I'm sure it's getting fixed, got fixed. Especially, I mean, we're talking about it now. Hopefully by the time this episode comes out, it'll be fixed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's, but you're probably right that they were just getting everything set and then they might have missed, finally screwing it in place or whatever they do to get that one in place. Yeah. But I do like the bunting.
No, yeah. And I was trying to think of some jokes to tell about this because I was like, for me, the castle is very much like the Instagram friendly castle, and so I was like thinking about how like, well, it's the new castle is so Instagram friendly. It's taking notes from the basic white girls that take photos in front of it on how to decorate, or like some kind of college student joke because as college student use command strips like crazy. But it's unfortunate that happened, and my second thought was maybe that we were going to see a 3M sponsorship for the castle for the 50th, but.
Scotch tape, the official sponsor of the Disney 50th?
Yeah. I was waiting for something like that because it's just unfortunate.
That's the way to turn it around. That's the way.
Exactly. You got to turn it into making money. The other thing that we saw this weekend, I think it was yesterday, is Disney food has become so expensive now that people have now to forage for food while living with the land.
See, now that's a good joke. That's a good joke.
Yeah. I saw the headline and I was like, "Are you serious?" I would say it's probably the safest ride to do that on, but still absurd that someone would jump off the boat on Living with the Land and grab a cucumber.
Well, I mean, I would imagine that I'd imagine it would be safe to get off of the People Mover, but I mean, it's killed. I think it was the Disneyland version, but that's killed 2 people. So, I mean, I was watching the footage and I'm like, I want to say she's safe, but I don't know. Because for a second it looked like she was slipping between the boat and the rail, and I'm like, I don't know how dangerous this is right now. And I think it's funny, but at the same time, it's just. I wonder how they're going to address that now on the ride, and I wonder what are they going to put up fencing or something or
something? Yeah. They clearly she was clearly, I would say, probably had a few too many margaritas in Mexico. Just the way she was kind of walking. So I think that definitely has something to do with it. At least the way it appeared in the video, and then it appeared that either some guy on the ride, also on the ride, or maybe her significant other eventually reeled her in and brought her back onto the boat. But
I hope the guy who helped her doesn't get in trouble.
No, I was thinking that too.
Because he was just trying to help her.
Thought. My other thought was maybe they'll start selling fishing poles around Epcot. It's just like a way to catch your food, which gets to that portion of the ride. I just thought it was totally ridiculous and just
we've been seeing an uptick in fishing with Goofy and Max lately around the park, so you could tie it in.
That's true.
You could tie
when
that
in Rome,
in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just some crazy, just like oddball stories from this weekend, and I just wanted to banter with you about it for a little bit. So beyond that, before we get into our actual discussion of the meat and potatoes of the show, we had a new Pixar movie come out this weekend on Friday, Luca, which is the new Pixar, free with your Disney Plus subscription. Surprisingly, there's no premiere access. You can go on there right now and watch Luca. So my question for you is, obviously, what did you think about the movie? And maybe we'll get to our initial review first, but then what is your thought on Disney not charging for these Pixar movies? Do you think it's a slap in the face to Pixar? Do you think it's just a goodwill thing that they're doing for us as fans? So I'm gonna spin it over to you real quick, see what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no. Apparently, from what I've heard, morale is at an all-time low. ATL, not Atlanta. There's your Bo Burnham joke for the week. But yeah, no. Apparently, morale is at an all-time low at Pixar because Onward crashed and burned because that's right when it released like a week before COVID hit. Then Soul went right to Disney Plus for free. Then this went to Disney Plus for free. So they're right now just feeling like, what are we doing here? And frankly, like,
Yeah.
I liked Cruella, and I enjoyed that. But if I had to pay for one of these, I would have paid for Luca because Luca was fantastic. It is definitely one of my favorite films in recent history, aside from like Coco. It was fantastic. It felt to me, and I said this to my wife, and she's like, I don't know about that, but I personally feel like it almost has like this weird Americanized Studio Ghibli energy of just sort of this carefree childhood, sort of this childish wonder. And yeah, I loved it. And this is the first time I'm talking about it to anyone, like aside from my wife. And, cause I like to kind of digest a film before I say anything on it. Because, there are films where I come right out and I was like, that was fantastic. And then like a few days later, I was like, it was good, it was all right. But no, this was genuinely wonderful. And I think, like, of the 3 COVID Pixar films that we've had, I would say between this, Soul, and Onward is my favorite. I did get a little carried away that night, and I ranked all of my all of the Pixar films.
Okay.
So I hold on. I put it at
episode
number
coming
4
soon.
for me. Oh yeah, no.
Oh, wow.
I feel like we'll do a ranking, but it's my number 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
No.
Okay. So I thoroughly enjoyed it as well. To the point where I watched it twice now.
Yeah.
My kids loved it, so I watched it with my kids twice, and they both loved it. I have 3 kids, but the 2 that actually watch TV loved it. And you're right. It seemed to me it was a return to form in a way to Pixar. Definitely far ranks anything that's come out since Toy Story 4. I think this is far beyond Toy Story 4 for sure. And definitely for me, my favorite out of the COVID releases, or the Disney Plus releases in a way.
Yeah.
It was that kind of feel-good summertime movie. When I first started watching it, I was concerned because I thought we were basically going to get like a male version of The Little Mermaid for a minute there. But it turned out to be really, really fun, energetic, bright, colorful movie that had a really good message for kids. The one thing that and I would say the theme definitely there was definitely some parental, like adult theming in terms of like acceptance and being willing to get out of your shell for the sake of your kids. But for me, the only downfall for me, and why it might not rank as high for you as it is for you, is that I like I said, I didn't really feel like it had like a grand message for all ages. It did, but it wasn't like something like profound as like Inside Out or something like that. So like from like the profoundness of the messaging, I don't think it stacks up to some of those movies like Inside Out and like
See, I hate like Inside Out though.
Oh, you do?
Oh yeah, okay. No, I hate Inside Out. I feel like Inside Out is that, well, mainly Pete Docter trying to go like super cerebral, and he did that a little bit in Soul too. But I like Soul. I do enjoy Soul, but I don't think a message. It doesn't need to be profound all the time, you know. And I think,
sure, that's fair.
I think, obviously there are things that are profound, in other films that do work and they're great. But I don't know. I feel like I think a lot of movies are so focused on being profound, they've forgotten the basics of, hey, I mean, at the end of the day, this is a family movie, and some of these basic themes and ideas we really aren't touching on anymore. So, because we're so focused on like, oh, we got to be profound, and it's okay to feel sad, which at the end of the day is kind of what Inside Out was. And I mean, frankly, I learned that watching Mr. Rogers, actually not, but yeah, I don't know. I think that is its strength. That its strength is its simplicity. And
I think you're right. Like I said, I like it a lot. And for me, Inside Out for a long time was not a movie that I watched. And so my view on Soul has changed since I've had kids, or not Soul, Inside Out. And so like I would and not to like be like, oh, wait till you have kids kind of thing, but for me. For me, Inside Out was never one of those like profound movies that I would watch. That I was like, oh, I love this. But I would say that Inside Out is, for me, it strikes a good balance. But you're right. This movie, Luca, is definitely a lot more relaxed. It's a lot more. And the reason I like it too is it does have those basic kind of principles of like, have fun as a kid, don't let boxes keep you away from making friends, new experiences, things like that. And like I said, it has really good messaging for the adults in the crowd too. Is that like, your kids might not be a lawyer, or they might not be what you want, what you envision them that their life will be growing up, and that they will have different interests than you think that they will pursue. I think that's a really important message to have. Because and to your point, I don't think that Pixar needs to have. It's not a requirement to have a profound message, and I think that you're right in the fact that a lot of studios want to have the message, like have a strong messaging for the sake of having a strong message. But I think Pixar for a long time has always struck this really delicate and masterful balance of having these messaging, but also just having good movies. We see that with Toy Story and things like that, where it's just it's a fun kids movie about toys that come to life, but then also they throw in these really profound messages about friendship and persevering even when times are tough and things like that. So. Where I think, especially Soul was throwing that. I liked Soul, but definitely Soul was very much like here is a message, take it in, and it was too focused on the message and on the story, in my opinion. Where I think, like I said, this is a return to form for Pixar with Luca.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, I think probably the next couple of weeks we'll have to do a ranking of all of our Pixar movies, because I'm a huge Pixar fan.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Disney characters, if not my favorite, is probably Buzz. And I just grew up on those early Pixar movies. Yeah, I love Buzz. Bug's Life, Toy Story, those were a big part of my childhood.
Bug's Life does not get enough credit.
I totally agree. Totally agree. It's forgotten.
Yeah, it definitely deserves more love. It's definitely higher on my list than probably most people. But yeah, and the thing is, as I was doing my ranking, and we'll get into it whenever we get into it. But I would say out of 24 films now, I would say until maybe like 18, like their films, like 18 of them are I genuinely think are great films, and I think they're wonderful. It's just when I have to rank them, it looks like I don't care about them as much. I'm like, no, these are great. Like they're great until like you get to 20, and then I'm like, so, and then
yes,
I think we all know what the one at the bottom is. So. But we'll get there when we get there.
I'm curious what your bottom one is, because I definitely had, for a long time I had one particular one on the bottom, but it sort of changed for me recently. Maybe because I've watched it so much, but we'll save that for that discussion.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, because that's why I'm holding up. I'm like,
yeah.
But to switch gears really quick, we just kind of wanted to do a quick show notes segment, very brief. But we wanted to touch on last episode. We were discussing our Patreon, and we were kind of launching that. We just wanted to follow up on that, and we've been looking at it, and we're going to be taking a deeper look at that in the weeks to come, and kind of restructuring that, because after we got it up and we were really looking at it, we were like, do we really want to do this and this? So just keep your eyes out. If you are considering our Patreon, first of all, thank you for just considering, but also just hold on, because we're going to be restructuring and resetting things. So just keep an eye on that, because we have some interesting things coming that I think will hopefully make it better. But we'll see. And then also we did announce our giveaway that will be our winner will be announced on our 10th episode. This is episode 6 right now. So what we're going to be doing is we know that a couple people reached out. They've been having a hard time doing that 4th part to enter, which is leaving a review on iTunes. I know some people have been having difficulty with that. Obviously, we apologize. Keep giving it a shot. We'd appreciate it if you keep trying, but we might not necessarily take that. Just depending upon how if this issue persists, we may not necessarily take that into account when we pick our winner. But if you can keep trying, that'd be great. I definitely I'm not going to stop you. So definitely keep trying to leave those reviews, and we'll keep tabs on that. But I know people have been having issues, so we're trying to make that more manageable. We've been having some real issues with getting our episodes up on iTunes, just because our launching there's some sort of disconnect with our launching app that our application that we're using. So keep your eyes on that. Again, we will be announcing the winner of the Magic Kingdom box on our 10th episode. If you have not entered and you want to learn more, go on to our Instagram page. It lists everything that's supposed to be, or that's going to be in that giveaway box. We're very excited about it, and we'll be kind of giving updates on that in the weeks to come. And then we'll be choosing that winner on our 10th episode.
No, awesome, yeah. And some notes on the technical side of things. Yeah, keep a lookout on iTunes. It appears that our episodes are posting pretty close to where we post them on iTunes. For some reason, Mason and our apps are not showing those releases, but I've had my wife look at it, and some other friends that they post right away. So I'm not sure what it is about us that's not allowing us to see the post.
Yeah,
but,
no,
but
for you.
Not for us. But like you said, keep an eye on the reviews. I would say keep trying to post those reviews. We've gotten an additional one recently, so we know it works. But make sure if you do a review, do the star review, and then make sure you put in a actual subject line and actual comment. Otherwise, it won't post. And then make sure you hit submit. So make sure you do all those steps for it to post. For some reason, Apple's very finicky about their reviews, but we appreciate all of those comments, and like you said, keep posting, keep interacting with us on Instagram. We'll have some fun stuff. Maybe we'll have ask for your opinions on the results of the debate here in a few minutes, as well as Instagram. And then I'll be live from all four parks in the middle of July. So make sure you hop on there to follow us to get some of that exclusive in-parks content that we have coming up as well. So we love all of you and appreciate all of your responses so far. So the real reason we have today's show.
I feel. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I feel like going to the parks in July is like the theme park enthusiasts equivalent of seppuku or whatever, when the samurai just runs themselves through with the katana. Because I can't imagine going down there in July. You are a braver man than I.
Yeah, we're a glutton for punishment. No, it's actually we'll be celebrating my son's 3rd birthday while we're down there too. So that was part of it, and then just with some family scheduling and DVC point validity, we had to get it in before we lost a bunch of DVC points. So
dang!
The original plan was to go in October. Yeah. The original plan was to go in October, time. I think, but we had some scheduling issues with other parts of the family. But it'll be fun. It'll be right after the 4th, so hopefully we'll get a post crowd lull. I think I'm hoping we'll sneak in there a little bit.
Hopefully,
post holiday lull. And it's a really great time because fireworks are back, and I'm really excited to watch Happily Ever After in person. I will be able to see Epcot Forever. I don't really care to see that, but I'll be there to at least experience it once to see how bad it is. But it's gonna be a fun time. Noodles are back at Ohana, so it's a good time to go. But so the reason you're here, the reason you clicked on this video or this audio is our discussion of Joe Rohde versus Tony Baxter. For all of you watching the video, I'm going to get into character a little bit. So I have my exclusive earpiece. Let me get my earring in real quick. It's also fitting that we have the show right around Father's Day because, Joe and Tony are daddy. So let me get my earring in real quick.
You're not wrong, but
there we go. There we go.
Right.
There we go. So you like that? Like the little earpiece.
Oh my gosh!
I had to pay homage.
It's nice.
Bit.
It's nice.
There we go.
It's nice.
It is nice. I could see why he wears it.
It's like ostentatious.
Adds to the spice of life here,
Oh yes.
I imagine he has a very strong neck.
Does that hurt? Side. Does that because it's pulling on? That's pulling.
It's pulling on my ear for sure. It's just I'll probably keep it in for the first few minutes here because I think it's kind of obnoxious, but I think it's a good look. It's a good look. It's my new Joe Rohde bound.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I don't have anything. I got a mustache. Yeah. I don't have anything for
you just gotta get some like gray spray paint or something. But so as you both know, I am on Team Joe. Mason is on Team Baxter. I think before we get this actual debate going, I think we need some backstory on your Pixar level villain backstory. The reason why, probably one of the reasons why you have a hate for Joe. You previewed the story on your TikTok, and I need to know more. I need to know more.
Yeah, I talk about it sometimes on there, and So it was July 4th, either 2014, 2015, I think, something around there. It was definitely July 4th, because at the time I was doing historical reenacting, and I was doing an event for the 4th. It was a artillery demonstration, and I'm standing there, and as the demonstration's going on, and I look over and I see this guy. It's in a field, like by some trees and stuff, and I see this guy squatted down against the tree, like sketching. And I look at him, I'm like, I know that guy. And he turns, and I see the huge, what you're wearing.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, no, he's an Imagineer. And I start leaning towards my dad, because my dad did it with me. And I'm like, hey, I know that guy. And he's like, what? I'm like, him, I know. He's like, he's an Imagineer. And he's like, we're doing a thing. Let's just focus on this. And I'm like freaking out, because I'm geeking out. I'm like, this is amazing. This is amazing. And, during this thing, and I walk over to him afterwards, and I'm like, I'm sorry. This probably is really weird. And he was sort of does that oh gosh, here we go. And I'm like, are you an Imagineer? He's like, yeah, Joe Rohde. And he shakes my hand, and that was cool. And then he's like, can you take me to your commander? And I'm like, sure. And so I'm walking him over to our camp, and I'm like, so I'm sure you get this a lot, but how do you become an Imagineer? And we have maybe a 10-15 minute conversation. 10-15 minute conversation, I'll say. And his wife's there. His wife is lovely, by the way. She was so sweet. But we get into to a bit of it, and he's like, well, it's a long road and stuff. And, especially nowadays, you start out with, smaller parks, smaller projects. And okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, well, what are you studying? And I said, oh, well, I'm studying film. Because in my mind, it's well, they, all the Imagineers were Walt's film people that he's just hey, you're designing theme parks now. So, and I'm thinking story, and that's my thinking behind it. I know it's not exactly connected, and I didn't join that major to say I want to be an Imagineer, but it's it's a dream of mine. It'd be amazing. But the minute I say that, he's like, well, I don't think that's gonna work out for you, and you studied the wrong thing. And I'm like, oh, all right, yeah. And then he presents this wonderful drawing to this sketch he did of our artillery group, and I'll see if I can post that on the show. He presents that to our commander, and with a little pomp and he's like, and I present this to you, and we're not. This isn't an event, dude. Just but yeah, and then he goes, and that's it, and I'm like, all right, cool. And then I'm laying in bed that night, and I'm like, dang. It was sort of that fly home, buddy, I work alone kind of vibe that he gave out.
Yeah.
I don't know. He kept, I don't know. I felt like I was an annoyance. He made me feel like I was an annoyance to him. And he's like, just how he was like, no, you definitely not. No. It really bummed me out. And then I guess I internalized it. And then, I was like, you know what? And then I follow him, or I followed him for a long time on Instagram, and he would just post these ridiculously long, I don't know, theses on stuff and I don't know, it just started to grate on me, and that's how I became a supervillain, Matthew.
Yeah, and so I just not to gaslight you or anything like that, but or to come to Joe's defense too much, is obviously that, like, I think you had the way you described it, it seemed like a fun conversation until that point.
Yeah, no, it was weird. It was definitely a weird conversation, but
sure.
And I could definitely tell he didn't want to have the conversation, but
yeah,
no, I mean, and it was still cool. Like, hey, I met an Imagineer in the wild, because this was this was in New Jersey, so
that's so random.
Yeah, like if you meet an Imagineer in the parks, that's awesome, that's great, but like just to meet one just so randomly.
Yeah,
I was like, that's pretty cool, and
yeah,
no, you're completely right, and I mean, he's not out of line. I mean, I work in HR now, so
no,
I mean, let's be honest, I didn't make the best choices.
No, and I don't think you're wrong on the way what you studied, and I think, and potentially he's right in the fact that, like, I think Joe is one of the last, like, kind of OGers where he, like, kind of worked his way from the bottom and, like, was a painter and all these other things and was involved in other parts of the company. Where, like, now it's like you have to be part of like, go to a certain school, like legit, like a certain school, and do a certain degree path. Where maybe I think he was just kind of prepping you for the sad reality of, like, how WDI has changed so much. And
you're absolutely right.
And I don't know if he agrees with that, what they've done. I have some theories on his retirement and how that went down. But he probably saw the writing on the wall and was like, and maybe you just were some, like, random kid that was like, oh, Joe Rohde, I want to be an Imagineer. But I think there was some.
I'm not Mickey Mouse.
But if I was in your shoes too, I'd be like, that sucks. Like,
Oh, and I'm definitely projecting. Like, not to get too, like, therapeutic here, but I'm definitely projecting. My insecurities.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it just sort of became like a comic.
Yeah.
Like a comedic vaudevillian sort of like, he's wronged me. And then I just sort of made a joke out of it on TikTok. So
yeah,
there we go. That's the story.
No, it reminds it reminds me of a discussion I had so in my early college years, I studied theology at a pretty big university that focused on theology. And one of my favorite authors and theologians at the time was one of my professors. And I had the great opportunity to work with them and actually befriended him down the line. But in one of his classes one day, it was in a room of, like, basically all theology students. And he was like, if you want to be a theology professor, anything to do with theology, he's like, don't. He said, go get another major and double major. He's like, no one in this room should be solely a theology major. If anyone is here, they're being stupid. And I was like, okay. Because he knew that, like, his career path was like one in a million. He's makes money off of writing theological books. Like, he speaks for, like, thousands of dollars at a time. Like, he's definitely, like, a celebrity in that world. But he's like, if you think you're going to be me, that's not what you want to do. Because, like, one out of every 1,000 theology students are going to do what I do. The other 999 are going to be either working for $15 an hour at like a Catholic school, Christian school, teaching this, or you're going to be not be able to pay the student loans that you're taking out. So that was really that's the vibe I get off from what Joe said to you, but still it sucks. It sucks that you were told that. By
wording it that way.
Yeah, for sure. But beyond that discussion, I think it's just fascinating that you met him in person. You've met actually quite a few cool people that I would love to have met. One being Mark Hamill, now Joe Rohde. Yeah. So I think that's just really, really interesting and fascinating. But let's get down for the remainder of the show on kind of our thoughts on each Imagineer, and I'll let you kind of lead off with your opening remarks on what makes Tony so special. While I take my earring off because it's just getting annoying.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, I'm focusing on their works, and my thesis, if you will, is that Joe Rohde makes fantastic attractions. He creates worlds that you go into that feel authentic, like they have been building and growing in there, and growing their emphasis on growing, because he's very a natural nature. He's the hippies Imagineer. However, Anthony Baxter, my boy, he creates amazing Disney attractions. He creates worlds that make you feel that Disney feeling. You are in those worlds. You are a part of the magic, in a way that I don't feel that Joe has ever achieved. Again, his worlds are amazing, but they are not inherently Disney. Do you want me to keep going on this, or are we going back and forth? I don't know.
Yeah. So let me give my opening remarks, and then we can kind of riff off that.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Because I think you make some very fair points, and for me, the reason that I think Joe is one of I think we're not debating here that they're both one of the greatest Imagineers of all time, but I would say that Joe is one of the most well-rounded Imagineers of all time. Not only has he's kind of like the complete package in a way. He's like in a way, he's like a triple threat. He's created not only, I would say, one of the best parks in the company right now, from the ground up. Obviously, Tony did Disneyland Paris, so they're kind of one for one on that. But we also see him as an actor. He he portrayed one permanent character, and part of Disney Sea with Harrison Hightower, but also he was portrayed Dreamfinder in the ImageWorks. So he was two iconic characters. One was mainly just his image, the other one was him actually acting out the character. But also we see him as a voice actor, as Alexander Graham Bell in American Adventure. But also he's like a world traveler and put together some great entertainment in the parks, beyond just attractions. He was involved in Adventurers Club, Captain EO. So he's for me, he's such a well-rounded character, well-rounded Imagineer, touching so many other facets of the company beyond just rides and attractions, and even going beyond the actual parks themselves, but even to Alani, where he actually designed Alani, so one of the ancillary Disney resorts, probably the best Disney resort outside the parks, as a kind of a period of this resort, of which we have. We have like Vero Beach and Hilton Head and things like that, but Alani is kind of the hallmark Disney hotel outside of the parks and resorts themselves. And then also we saw him do some work in Paris as well. He did the Villages Nature, which is one of the hotels there as well. So for me, the thing that's hard for me in this discussion is Tony Baxter has designed and created my favorite ride of all time, with Splash Mountain, but I see Joe as the kind of ultimate Imagineer, at least in the modern era, of be able to have talents in all aspects of theme parks, ranging from creating a park to entertainment, character acting, and then building and designing beautiful hotels.
Mm-hmm. You bring up a great point, or you bring up something interesting with how Joe, at a time what portrayed Dreamfinder. Mm-hmm. And and he also portrays Harrison Hightower, which is a C member. And now, now of course, a couple of years ago, we got Barnabas T. Bullion, which is another C member, directly inspired by Tony Baxter. But I would say that Tony was the real Dreamfinder. I mean that the idea of Figment and Dreamfinder was of course his, but it was started way prior and into with Discovery Bay and Professor I think he was Professor Marvel at the time, and then how we're still kind of getting bits of that and that idea even today, because we have of course that Professor Marvel morphed into the Dreamfinder and Figment. We got bits of that from, eventually we got the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea at Magic Kingdom. Of course, that's gone now, but, that was him. We have Discovery Land at Disney Paris. And I feel like Disney Paris might be a point of, Animal Kingdom Disney Paris might be a point of contention as we go on, but sure. We got that land, which is directly inspired by Discovery Bay. Then we have Tokyo Disney Sea, which is arguably the best park, best Disney park in the world, according to several people. And then, you even have bits of that even being referenced today. So it's crazy how just one of his ideas has rippled through decades and has been parts, has been able to revivify the company in so many different ways. Figment is still very prominent in Epcot, much to the chagrin of Michael Eisner, I'm sure, because I know there was apparently there was a meeting that he was in, and he was just cussing up a storm, apparently, just about Figment, how much he hates that dragon. But he's still hanging on. He's still clinging. He's an icon for that park. You have the Discovery Land, specifically Space Mountain. Space Mountain almost, in a way, saved Disney Paris, or at the time Euro Disney. You have and then everything with Tokyo Disney Sea, which I feel like in a way Tokyo Disney Sea is almost like the marriage of our two Imagineers, because I feel like you can feel both of them in that park.
So I didn't realize that Tony was involved in Sea. I know that he brought over the Indiana Jones ride, which he was involved in, but I don't think he was much involved outside of Indiana Jones.
I thought, and this was to my understanding, that all the Jules Verne influence kind of came from him.
Well, I think that was inspired based off what they did in Paris, but I don't think he was involved at all with. Well, at least he's not credited as the designer for Sea.
I had read that. I'm sorry, I had read that somewhere.
And I can double check as we're talking here too.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. And regardless, you see those ripples,
Sure. Well, yeah, and I would say that, yeah, definitely. both Imagineers had involved, like their works had inspired a lot of that at sea for sure. But I think that's just a ripple effect of them being two good Imagineers. And the thing I wanted to clarify on too is that a lot of what Tony has done, obviously he has his hallmark items like Paris, Splash, Big Thunder, things like that. But a lot of what he did was rethemes. He was in charge of either bringing things back or retheming things. Whereas he wasn't involved. Well, he was, in terms of 20,000 Leagues, he did the work for the retheming to the Finding Nemo submarine voyage, but it wasn't 20,000
He did do that as well, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, a lot of like looking at his kind of curriculum vitae here is that he obviously had really hallmarked like original attractions, but he also, a lot of what he did was retheming old attractions to get this new era, which is we could debate on whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, but for me, Joe was one that was coming up with new and original content and everything, every step that he took, and really everything that he really put a stamp on at the end of the day. And one thing I think for Joe is that he finally brought to life a dream that Walt had of having like live animals in the parks. When they were designing Jungle Cruise, that was one of the things that Walt wanted, was actual like jungle animals, elephants, things like that, live animals on the ride. Obviously, logistically, that's just not safe and near impossible to do. Where Joe was able to make that Walt dream a reality, and I think that's something really important to the history of the company, is the aspect of Walt wanting live animals in the parks, but also putting together a park that was totally unique to the Disney experience, where Disneyland Paris, I think, is one of the best castle resorts, castle parks in the world. I think that's true. But it was another castle park, where Joe was able to put together a park that was completely new. There was no script for that park, and I think that really shows his brilliance and ingenuity, and calling on kind of the classic approach of going beyond the basic design process, but actually immersing himself into cultures to make sure they do it right. We see that as a hallmark of Mark Davis, is that Mark Davis went and visited other cultures, the Polynesian, things like that, when creating Jungle Cruise. And so for me, I really see Joe as having inklings of that original mindset of the Imagineers, of bringing you into authentic new experiences beyond just the standard castle park experience.
It's interesting that you bring up Mark Davis, because in many ways, Baxter was a pupil of Davis. True. Where you see, and the flip side of that coin is, something else that is sort of a hallmark of Davis is his character, his characters. And just sort of that almost not tongue in cheek. I think that's a misnomer, but sort of how that personality, and I look at Big Thunder, which obviously was sort of like, I jokingly think of that as sort of like the Anakin Obi-Wan battle between Davis and Baxter, because of course that the idea of Thunder Mountain sort of killed Davis's idea for Western River Expedition.
Mm-hmm.
So
totally.
And he took that very personally, and I think I think that played a big hand in why he left WDI. But so and again, I think I think Baxter took that to heart, because he did a lot in the remainder of his career that sort of paid homage to that idea later on.
Yeah.
And I'll cover that in a minute. But, you have, as much as you want to brush off Disney Paris, it is, I think of the castle parks, it might be the best. Now, luckily, I was able to go there a long time ago now. My gosh, almost 20 years ago. Gee whiz, time flies when you're living. But it in an interview he said, the benefit of Disney Paris is they have space, and there's just so much personality there. And you just, I don't know, you feel like you're part of it. Yes, it's another castle park. Yes, there's a formula, but he redefines the formula so incredibly well there. And you see it in you can see it in every land. This is his second time, just with that park, that's his second time doing a fantasy land, because he was heading up the new fantasy land in Disneyland a decade prior. So that was his second crack at it. He, I think he has, I really think he has a passion for Frontierland, and it shows, because his Frontierland has a whole interconnected story throughout the land that I think lays a bedrock for sea, even just kind of that idea of interconnectivity between attractions. He was doing that first with Phantom Manor, and that's another thing. Phantom Manor, is Haunted Mansion, but it's completely different. It has, to a point where it even has its own specific sub fan base. And then, you have Discoveryland, which is the idea of Tomorrowland, but completely retrofitted and reverse engineered to a point of, okay, in many ways he fixed Tomorrowland. And I just don't think you can, that's something that should be ignored. And again, he didn't do everything. It was not, it's just, they locked him in a room and I've done it. Obviously there were hundreds and hundreds and thousands of workers and Imagineers behind him, and other people who were heading up these projects. But this was all, his overview, and on his watch. And of course, famously, there is the huge financial failure that it was. But I think that comes more from the boardroom end and the business side than his creative design. I think creatively,
no, I agree.
It's definitely a masterwork. But yeah. So, and I know I started with Mark Davis on this and completely got way off base. But again, Splash Mountain, so much personality. No matter, what side you are on the debate of it today. Yeah, it solved a problem. It cheaply reused the America Sings audio animatronics. Yeah, it solved a problem. But it solved the problem, and we got something amazing, something that's still popular today, something that is just 100% Disney and fun with so much personality bursting out of it. And then, you have Indiana Jones Adventure, which was from the ground up, so much so that they kind of, they tried to replicate it in Joe's Park.
Yeah. No, yeah, and the thing I'm looking, as I look at all of what Tony has done, and it's really unfortunate, beyond Big Thunder, kind of looking at all of his things that he's done, you have Big Thunder, which is not going anywhere, but his original Journey's gone, his original Star Tours is gone, Splash Mountain's about to go out the door pretty soon here. who knows how much longer we'll see. Well, um, the Finding Nemo submarine voyage. I think that'll be around for a little bit. And then obviously we have Disneyland Paris, but a lot of like some of his like hallmark attractions, there's a few of them like are just like kind of wiped away now, which is I think sad, but also I don't know if it says something about the kind of the way he designs things. Maybe things that he designs have an expiration date on them. Whereas we look at kind of Joe's curriculum, Alani is not going anywhere. It's well established and going to be staying around for a long time. Animal Kingdom will be around for a long time. Well, yes, that is true. What I'm saying is like, I think the lasting effect that Joe have on the company will be around for a lot longer than Tony's, at least what we've seen currently with the track record of the things he's worked on. Animal Kingdom will be around for many years and still improving. We even talked about with Pandora and how a lot of those rides were innovative and for a long time until some more recent attractions has been seen as some of the best attractions that Disney's made in quite some time. The great thing about Tokyo is that they don't really like to change things. They aren't as easily offended by things. So I don't think that we'll see his depiction in Tower of Terror ever leave. Obviously, his Adventurers Club is gone, which is a really sad portion of his history. But I would argue that was a forerunner to Sea itself. Captain EO obviously is gone, but the Norway Pavilion is still there. His involvement on the new Fantasyland expansion is still there. Mexico Pavilion is still there. American Adventure is still there for now. Is that Joe has a lot of things, and so does Tony at the end of the day. Have a lot of things that have cemented them into the fabric of the Walt Disney Company, but. My perception is, or at least my view, and I think we won't agree on this at all, but is that I think Joe has some things in his grand works that will never be touched, or at least will always kind of be at the company. And fortunately, both these Imagineers have parks that are attached to them.
Absolutely.
And so I think they'll never be forgotten in that way. And to kind of bring this back to my original point when we first really met, is that for me, Joe has always been a face of Imagineering, and has often been in the public eye to be kind of easily associated with it. And that just might be our generation just being exposed to his works, because while we were growing up, that's when Animal Kingdom was being built. And so obviously he was involved in all that marketing. And so that was maybe why I have that viewpoint on Joe, because a lot of my early introduction to Imagineering was through Joe and through the creation of what he was putting together of Pandora, everything in Animal Kingdom, things like that.
Yeah.
Whereas when Tony was really in his heyday, that was before my real, and it's probably the same thing for you, real recognition of what Imagineering was, what really the Disney parks were.
Yeah, like when you're cognizant of it.
Correct. Yeah, because Paris was built before we were even born. And so that maybe that's my bias on this discussion, is that Joe for me was the first one to introduce me to what it meant to build a really big animatronic, what it meant to build a huge park. And so that's kind of why I land on it. Is that at the end of the day, obviously, I think Tony like I said, Tony's my favorite ride of all time, so I can't dock him that at all. And fortunately, I'll be able to go to Tokyo and ride that ride once the domestic versions are gone. But for me, it kind of end out my kind of final thoughts on this. I think that Joe is a much more well-rounded Imagineer at the end of the day, where Tony has definitely some hallmark attractions, but he's definitely just kind of stayed within one vein of parks and resorts, which makes him still, I think, in the Mount Everest of, or not Mount Everest, the my Mount Rushmore of Imagineers. But I would say that Joe is a little bit higher for him, higher than him for me at the end of the day.
I wanna kind of backtrack here because you were saying like what's still around of theirs and stuff, and again, this is a fun tete-a-tete, and that's what this is. So don't.
No, yeah.
We're having fun here. But like, look at this. You have Big Thunder Mountain, which is his baby, and you have that replicated in almost every castle park.
Yeah.
And that's not going anywhere. I think we could agree that. Then you have, his redesign. You know, he led on New Fantasyland. Yes, Journey into Imagination is gone now, but people are still hanging on to that to this day. Then you have Star Tours he worked on, and that is gone in that version.
Yeah.
But it's still, it didn't leave. Because we still have Star Tours, it's still a beloved attraction that has it. Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely either should move to Galaxy's Edge or but you make a great point there. You have Splash Mountain, where people are upset about it, but it's still so beloved as an attraction, which we can get. We'll get into the
I would love to have a Splash Mountain discussion, but
listen, I don't need this show getting canceled yet. We didn't even make 10 episodes, but even still, it's still so beloved that all right, we still want the attraction, but we're going to retheme it. But they're even bringing him out of retirement in whatever capacity to consult on the retheme. So it's like they still need his hand, even when he's retired, to come back and change the ride that he designed. Then you have a castle park that is like the underdog of castle parks because it has fought an uphill battle from the start. Then you have Indiana Jones Adventure. I already covered that. Then you have you have Voyage, the Finding Nemo ride. So I have nothing to say about that. But you have all of these things, and then on the flip side, you have Joe did a resort. Good for him. He made a hotel. He did Animal Kingdom, especially Expedition Everest. That is no small feat. I think he had a ton of disadvantages going up against him with that. At the same level as Euro Disney. And he was a model for Harrison Hightower. He was an inspiration for a character. Great. He did Adventurers Club. That's gone. He was a character designer for Captain EO. Great character design, but he was a character designer. Okay. Norway Pavilion. Half of that's gone now as it was. Then you have helping in New Fantasyland. Then he was a painter for Mexico. And then he did a voice of Alexander Graham Bell. He voiced the character for an attraction. Good for him. And then he was pulled off of the back lot or whatever and said, "Hey, we're going to put you in this Dreamfinder costume. Go run around for this character I designed because my name is Tony freaking Baxter. Hey, can you run around for a couple minutes?" So yes, he has a great presence, but I think you're really underselling the effects that you feel made by Mr. Anthony Baxter dropping the mic.
Yeah, no, and I think you're right. I think, and I don't disagree with any of those points. But like I said, I think they're both great Imagineers. But for me, I think Joe has had a great influence, and I think a lot of it's been on deaf ears now on the modern WDI culture. I think Joe, for me, has always been, and I think to downplay his work on Alani is a disservice to the resort, because it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and it's a way that the Disney parks and the stories that Disney wants to tell branch beyond the parks themselves, but also to an experience of for many a new part of their own country, a new part of the world that he was able to accentuate that cultural experience with the Disney magic. And for me, I think Tony's, like I said, maybe I didn't say this yet, but is a slice of that original kind of mindset of Imagineering, of doing that more castle-based attractions. And I think, and to your point, that will be everlasting. But Joe found a way to branch out beyond the general fantasy of the castle themes, and bring us into new parts of the world that some of us might not experience. And that's just the charm of Epcot, is bringing you to different parts of the world. But Joe was able to bring us into these kind of back to the grassroots of us as human beings, of nature and things like that. And I would say his Involvement Adventures Club as well was a way to it redefined what it meant to have streetmosphere, what it meant to have entertainment in the parks, that we're still seeing today. And unfortunately, with current budget cuts, those are kind of gone by the wayside now. But I think, I think we're pinning up two titans here at the end of the day. Is that I think, yes, Tony will have attractions that will be here for a lifetime, but so will Joe. And I think Joe had a way of really influencing the current Imagineers for the positive, in light of the current administration's downplaying of the importance of Imagineers. Is that the reason why we're getting some good attractions today is because of Joe. And he's been the reason why that we're still getting some decent things out of WDI. Because if we didn't have Joe, I think we'd still be getting some subpar content, subpar attractions and storytelling. Because if we didn't have Joe, we'd be getting guys like Zach Ridley that just show us broken glass on his Instagram, where Joe was all about going above and beyond, taking the extra step to tell an authentic story. So for me, I think he's a crusader in the modern era, and that's why he's so important to me. But to your point, I think that Tony has really excelled on putting some hallmark, everlasting attractions together, and that's not to be downplayed at all. But I think part of that was the time that he worked in. I think if Joe had more opportunity to build and had more latitude to do more of what he wanted, we'd be able to get more attractions out of him. That Tony had a benefit from an administration that was very much allowing him to do what he wanted, and gave him the opportunity to build some really amazing things.
Would you look at that? This episode had an arc, ladies and gentlemen, a character arc. And you've definitely opened my eyes to be more grateful, I think, to really look outside my own bubble. And no, but you're absolutely right. And I think we both worked off of the same Disney wiki pages. So I think we also need to remember that the saving grace that was not mentioned on the wiki page, so whoever runs that, get your crap together, was the saving grace of Avengers Campus that we've had for a couple years now, Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. And that was, he was a front runner for that project. He was a spokesperson for that. So I don't know.
He was.
And so I thought he had more of a hand in that, but they're not including that there. So I need to do some more research.
Yeah, I had that in my notes, and I just was referring to other things. But yeah, he was the main Imagineer on that for sure.
Yeah. So, and if you notice, the collector's collection,
the only good attraction in that park right now, or in that.
No, and then if you look up in the collector's collection, what's hanging up there? Figment, and an homage to another great compatriot in WDI, and I think you we wouldn't have the Society of Explorers and Adventurers without either of them, because you have that you get, and I feel like the SEA is sort of that marriage of both of them. I hope you would agree.
No, I agree,
because I don't think you would have that without either of them. So so I think it's good that
without the backstory associated with Big Thunder as well as Thunder Mesa, I think we would have very little sea expansion.
And so I think it's kind of cool that they're both both kind of
the founding fathers of sea.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody talks about that really. But anyway, I think this is a draw. But you've opened my eyes.
No, and for all of you that are listening to the show, we'd love to hear your comments on this discussion, your comments on both Imagineers, and maybe you learned something today about both Imagineers and what they've done for the company. But I think that's a good place to step off. I think this is one of our longest shows, which is exciting. But before we head out, make sure you tune in each and every week to hear us talk about our musings of all things Disney. But I think it is time to get going now. We really enjoyed our time with all of you today. If you want more of us in your life, but you want to see us separately, you can go to Unofficial Disney CEO on TikTok to see more of Mason's content. And to view some of my content, you can go to my Instagram, which is Matt Arterberry, or my YouTube page, which is Matt and Mary Kate, where I show off my family's life and also our travels to Disney. Or together, you can see us and view all of our content on Instagram on Hubgrass, where we post regularly about our show. If you like what we do here and you want to help us out to make our show better, please consider joining our Patreon, which the link below will be added as well. But until next time, remember, there is a great, big, beautiful podcast, and it's just a stream away. See you on the Hubgrass, folks.
But Tony's better.